Hello, this is Dr. Crow. I am re-recording our orientation session from March 23rd because it didn't record properly in Stanton Gerber. So we will be talking today about your P1 summer orientation for your rotations in community pharmacy. First of all, I want to start by talking about our texting service. So the phone number for the texting service is 313131. You can add this to your contacts, and please add it as the Office of Experiential Education because we will be texting you from time to time, especially related to practice site requirements or other things that you need to meet in order to do your rotation. So you have to opt into this texting service, and I believe that's for all carriers. So you have to text this message to 313131 to opt in. And we will be sending out a test text over the next couple of days. So please be watching for that to see that you receive it. So I'd like to start by talking about IPPE Success Basics. So first of all, make sure that you're checking your email frequently. I know when you leave here at the end of April, you may be tempted to not check your email until you're back again in August. However, if we need to reach you, many times we try to reach you through email, and this won't be just during your 2-week rotation session, but maybe a month or two before, because we may need to reach you regarding a specific practice site requirement or a preceptor issue or something like that. So please remember to check your email on a regular basis. The other way that we contact you is through your phone. So please make sure that your contact information is up to date with Wendy Williams so that we can reach you whenever needed. Another important IPPE success basic to remember is appropriate dress. So for females, this includes dresses or skirts which fall at or below the knee. It includes closed-toe shoes, no sandals or anything like that. You can wear dress pants or khakis, and you should also wear sweaters or blouses, but make sure the neckline is modest. No extensive piercings or extreme hairstyles, and then you need to wear your lab coat while you're on rotation. For males, this includes a shirt and tie, dress pants or khakis, dress shoes that are in good condition, socks, you must always wear socks, and then also wearing your lab coat. For attendance, this is only a 2-week rotation, so you should plan to be there every day of the rotation. You need to talk to your preceptors if for some extenuating circumstance, such as you're very ill or something, you can't come. I would recommend clarifying on your first day of rotation how you should communicate that to the preceptor. For example, we've had situations in the past where a student has sent an email to the preceptor and the preceptor didn't see it until about 4 or 5 hours into the day, and they were very worried about the student. So if your preceptor prefers that you text them or call them on the phone or email them, make sure that you clarify that. Again, you need to contact your preceptors, and you need to do that at least 2 weeks, if not a month, before your rotation starts. And some of the things that you might want to clarify include starting times, what days of the week you work. Some rotations may have you work on a Saturday, for example, but have another day off during the week. And your time is meant to be at least 40 hours a week, but 40 hours is not the maximum. So if your preceptor asks you to be there longer than 40 hours a week, you should expect to be there. And then we'll talk about the workbook in a few minutes, but that time that you're on site isn't necessarily to complete the workbook, that you may have additional time outside of work to work on that as well. And then for grade and performance evaluation expectations, your grade expectation is that this rotation is a pass-fail. So you, at the end of your rotation, will receive an evaluation, and that evaluation will decide whether you pass or fail. Your performance, though, is evaluated by your preceptor, and they may give you feedback or comments in that evaluation that you should take not as an insult or anything like that, but make sure you're taking those comments and trying to grow from them. I can tell you from our perspective, we've had students in the past that were really worried about these evaluations and how it would reflect on them from the comments of the preceptor. But I can tell you that we actually encourage our preceptors to give you feedback and tell you how to improve your performance. In no way does that reflect poorly on you or on the preceptor. So be expecting it. This is your first clinical or your first real rotation, so I assume that not anyone in this room is doing everything perfectly from day one of their IPPE rotation. So please, again, please don't be offended or upset by that. Please be expecting it. For professionalism, I wanted to bring up a few items that have come up in the past that I want to make sure that you all are aware of and not making the same mistakes. So first of all, with Facebook, don't post anything about your preceptor, about your patients, or about your rotation on Facebook. Those things definitely get back to experiential education, and they also get back to your preceptors, and it's not a very professional thing to do. Also, do not contact your preceptors through Facebook. I recommend not friending your preceptors on Facebook. So make sure that at all times this is a very professional relationship that you have with your preceptors. The same thing goes for the phone. You shouldn't, if your preceptor asks you to text them for some reason, make sure it's always a very professional text. Don't get too casual with your preceptors on your texts or phone calls. Please always address your preceptor in a professional way too. And with your phone also, make sure that if you have your phone out while you're on rotation, it's out for accessing resources or reasons like that. Please don't text or take personal phone calls on rotation unless it's an emergency. Again, I have rotation feedback here, but the feedback that you receive from your preceptor should be taken as advice of how to improve your performance throughout your career as a student here. So make sure that you're taking that as that and not be offended by that. Again, you need to respect everyone, so that means technicians, nurses, physicians, other students, and patients. Make sure that you're treating the technicians in a very respectful way on your community rotation, and also your patients, and respect their privacy. And any type of respect that you can show them, please do so. You need to respect the hours of rotation. So if your preceptor asks you to be there at 8, you should be there at 8. Don't show up late. If they ask you to stay until 5, don't ask to leave early unless it's an extenuating extreme circumstance. You need to meet every expectation of your preceptor as far as hours of the rotation. If your preceptor asks you to write anything, make sure that you're citing or give a presentation, make sure that you're citing your references appropriately. And if you have to be absent, we talked about this earlier, but if you have to be absent, first of all, you should not be absent for the 2 weeks unless it's an extenuating circumstance. But if you have to be absent for an illness or an extreme circumstance, please communicate with your preceptor ahead of time of how they want you to let them know about something like this. And then only miss rotation during those extreme situations. So if you're ill, miss only as few days as you can, and expect that they may have you make days up for that at the end of the rotation. For site requirements, we want you to make sure, first of all, to check and see if you need an out-of-state intern license. So Tennessee does not require an intern license, so if your rotation is here in the Tri-Cities area, chances are you don't need one. If your rotation is in Virginia, you do need an out-of-state intern license. North Carolina does not require them. So each state has a different law or rule about these. So if you're completing your rotation outside of those 3 states, please check now. Check today and see if you need to get an out-of-state license. Sometimes those licenses take a month or more to get. So if you do require one, make sure that you're starting right now to get that and don't wait until a week or 2 before your rotation. You can go into eValue and look at your roster, and whatever location your rotation is, you can look at the requirements for that and then work on meeting those now. It's best if you do this right now and not again wait until a few weeks before, because if you don't meet the site requirements, you cannot do the rotation and you cannot progress in the curriculum without doing your IPPE summer rotations. So I will say right now that CVS and then CVS Pharmacy, that was formerly Target Pharmacy, and Kroger All require background checks, which they pay for, so it's no expense for you, but you have to complete those at least a month before. So if you have a May rotation at CVS, you need to complete this within the next week, or you will not be able to go on rotation. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the community workbook that you will have to complete while you're on rotation. So this goes along with the rotation, so it's your IPPE curriculum workbook. It does have a number of topics in it, such as participation in patient care, calculations, law and ethics, dispensing medications, pharmacy operations and management, and third-party concepts, along with a few other items that you'll have to complete. You are expected to complete this and submit this workbook through D2L when you're finished with your rotation, and you will not pass the rotation until the workbook has been turned in. So the workbook is meant to build on skills that you developed during your simulations over the past year. It will give you exposure to higher level concepts in the real world, which is great. We talk about many things in class, but this gives you the actual time to practice those things in the real world. And then you will be participating in operations and patient care, and it does supplement the time at the site. So don't expect to complete your workbook 100% on site, because you may have activities and things you need to do while on site. So anticipate spending at least 1 to 2 hours per day on your workbook, and that those hours per day may be outside your normal work hours for your rotation. And then this is self-directed learning, so you shouldn't expect your preceptor to take responsibility for you completing the workbook, but you need to complete the workbook yourself and you need to be directed. So I would suggest taking your workbook on the first day of rotation, sharing it with your preceptor, and then coming up with your own plan of what needs to be completed, because you have several activities that you need to do and you only have a certain amount of time to do it in. So I would map out your activities and what you need to do each day to complete everything in the workbook. Here are some of the activities that are in the workbook, just as examples. So on the left-hand side, you see an immunization delivery and record keeping activity, and then you are expected to participate as allowed in the delivery of immunizations. There's some questions there that you can answer outside of rotation, such as where can you look to research what vaccines a patient might be eligible to receive, and then what information you need to document and things like that. On the right-hand side, you see an example from the workbook about cultural competency, and this is a reflection. And this reflection, it does say on here, should be completed in Pathbright. We will have you actually complete that activity in D2L this year, so that has changed. We had some complaints about the workbook last year and submitting it through Pathbright or eValue, so we've tried to make it easier for you for the coming year to submit your workbooks. So more information will be coming out over the coming weeks about how you submit that through D2L. But for now, it will be done through D2L, and be expecting that information. So you will have some reflections to write like this one. You may have to take a medication inventory assessment, so discussing with the pharmacy technician how a medication inventory is maintained and how the pharmacy keeps track of expiration dates on medications, and what types of medications do we need to store in a refrigerator, how do we maintain the temperature logs for the refrigerators and freezers. So all of those types of things would be done in an activity like that. And then on the right hand side, you have a patient counseling activity. So you might be working with your preceptor to identify a prescription a patient is picking up and that you would feel comfortable counseling the patient on, and then look up the information that you need to share with the patient, and even possibly share it with your preceptor beforehand, and then actually counsel the patient on the medication. So again, I've talked about evaluations and how important they are. So your preceptors will evaluate your performance, and you should expect feedback in that evaluation. And not that you're doing everything great, because I think very few people in the room are probably doing everything great at this point. That's the whole purpose of doing this experience. But be expecting some positive feedback and some constructive feedback on your performance. And then we also need you to evaluate the preceptor and the site, and that's very important. We use this information in the experiential education office to help develop sites if we receive some constructive feedback from you. We also use it to recommend sites to students and to maintain our best sites for experiential education. So in order to do that, we need your feedback about the preceptor and site. Please be aware that these are semi-autonomous and that if you, the preceptor won't receive your comments until 6 months after your rotation is over, so they usually get those in December. If the site has multiple students, then they won't be able to tell which student gave what feedback, but do be aware if you're the only student on site for the summer that they will know that it was you that filled out the evaluation. And to be honest, this isn't really important if you're writing your comments in constructive ways to help improve the site. But make sure that you're very professional and very constructive in those comments. I do want to talk about the needle stick policy. I think this is very important. As you're out on rotation, you may be checking someone's blood glucose or you may be giving an immunization. I will say that I have a feeling that many students are afraid to report if they do get stuck with a needle. I will say just to tell you up front that this has actually happened to me. So when I was working in Kenya, I was checking a patient's blood sugar and had stuck their finger to check their blood sugar and then accidentally stuck myself with the lancet. And so I, because of this needle stick policy that I was abiding by there, we immediately tested the patient for HIV. The patient was negative, and that was kind of the end of the line of the process. But if you don't contact someone or don't tell them right away, then it becomes less likely that we can do anything to help you. So help you prevent HIV, because many times the medications, if the patient is positive for HIV, are started within 1 to 2 hours of the needle stick. So if you wait 2 or 3 days, then it's less likely that the medications will work for you. So just to remind you of what this needle stick policy is, so if you are exposed to blood or another infectious bodily fluid, then you need to wash with soap and water immediately. You need to flush if you were exposed to the nose, mouth, or skin. Make sure you're flushing that area. If you have a splash to the eyes, make sure you're irrigating your eyes for several minutes, and then report the incident to your supervisor or preceptor. And you really need to report that immediately. I will say that you need to not only report it to your supervisor or preceptor, but you need to report it to the Office of Experiential Education too. So the reason I say this is any site that you're at has a policy, or likely has a policy for needle sticks, so they'll have to fill out an incident report at the site. But then we also have incident reports that we need to fill out for the university. So please contact our office if this happens. If it happens over a weekend, make sure that you report it at the soonest date that you can, so report it the following Monday. And then seek medical treatment immediately. So your preceptor or site employee will inform the patient and consent for testing. So that should be done by your preceptor, not by you. So again, make sure that they're aware. And then report immediately to the preceptor or department head and or experiential site, which I just said. And then we'll fill out incident reports for the college and for the facility where you are. And we need that report to Office of Experiential Education within 24 hours of the incident. So during the session on March 23rd, we had you fill out a future site survey. So we gave you a break during that time. If you haven't completed that survey, you received it in email. So please take the time and complete that. And then I wanted to give you some information about future rotations, because the paperwork for these rotations can take months to complete. So I wanted you to be aware from the start that the deadline to submit a request for a new site, which this new site for you will be your institutional rotation in the following summer. So not this summer, but the following summer. Your clinical rotation will be with faculty, so that is not something that you should try to find an additional site for, but only your institutional 2-week rotation. Please don't wait until August, especially with institutional rotations. They take especially long to get the paperwork together, and it's a lot of legal paperwork that passes back and forth. So if you know for sure that you want to do an institutional rotation at home in Kansas, for example, make sure that you stop by experiential education, especially before you leave for break in April. But make sure that you stop by experiential education as soon as you can, and we'll work with you to complete the paperwork for this experience. We do have some forms for you to fill out. So we can help you fill out those forms in experiential education. We're hoping also that sometime soon those forms will be available online, and so that you can submit them through a FormStep application and we'll receive it. So please be watching for that also. We do have some sites that are called out of region, meaning, for example, there's a rotation in Knoxville and it's out of region because our region includes Johnson City, Kingsport, Bristol, Abingdon, Greenville, Unicoi, so those types of places right in the middle of this area, which are the in-region sites. But outside that region, for example, Knoxville, we do have a couple of sites such as Fort Sanders that we have on board as a site, but we will still need to contact them to see if they're willing to take an IPPE student the following summer. So if you think you want to have a rotation at a site that is considered out of region, but we still have them on board as a site for us, please make sure that you talk to us and let us know that too. And there is a form for you to fill that out. So once you fill out those forms, we contact the site in experiential education and see if they want to precept students, and if so, what months they want to precept them. So when we contact that site, we typically email them 2 times and then we make a phone call to them. If we haven't received a response back from them by then, we typically say that's the end of the line. They're not interested in taking students. And the reason why we do that, first of all, is we don't want to continually harass our sites and our preceptors. But second of all, we have requests not only from P1 students, but P2 students, and then our P3 students have mini rotations, and we have requests from them too. So completing all of this paperwork takes a long time, and we want to limit the numbers of contacts that we have with the site. So that is basically it for this orientation session. We will have a makeup session coming up soon, so if you have any questions or comments, you feel free to come to that makeup session and ask your questions. Thank you very much for your time and attention, and I hope you have a good day.